You know that feeling when your whole world just stops, when everything you believed about your life turns out to be a lie? Well, let me tell you about the day that happened to me and how it led to the sweetest revenge I could have ever imagined. My name is, and 6 months ago I was nobody. Just another face in the crowd at Helix Soft, a mid-sized tech company in downtown Seattle where I worked as a junior analyst. 28 years old, single mom to my 5-year-old daughter, and honestly, I thought I was lucky to have the job at all. See, I'm what they call an immigrant striver. My family came here from El Salvador when I was 12, and I've been fighting for every opportunity since. My mom worked 3 cleaning jobs to keep us afloat while I learned English by watching cartoons with subtitles. Dad wasn't in the picture, he'd stayed behind, promising to follow us later. That was 16 years ago, and we're still waiting. College was a war zone of scholarships, student loans, and working 25 hours a week at a campus coffee shop. Computer science wasn't exactly welcoming to girls like me, brown, broke, and speaking English with an accent that professors constantly asked me to slow down, even though I was born to code. While my classmates partied or did unpaid internships their parents funded, I was debugging code at 2 a.m. between shifts, serving overpriced lattes to kids whose monthly allowances exceeded my annual income. But I made it through. Graduated summa cum with a degree in computer science and exactly $47,000 in student debt that felt like a mountain on my shoulders. Finding work was brutal, 3 months of rejections, each one chipping away at my confidence. You're overqualified for entry-level, but for mid-level, they'd say. Translation, you don't look like what we expect a programmer to look like. Then Helix Soft called. Lane, VP of Operations, interviewed me over video chat from what looked like his home office, family photos, diplomas, the works. He seemed impressed by my technical skills, asked good questions about database optimization and system architecture. When he offered me the job at $22,000 annually, I almost cried with relief. It's a junior position, he explained, but there's lots of room for growth. We really value hard work and dedication here. I believed him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. For 2 years, I poured my heart into that place. I literally rebuilt their entire client management system from the ground up. The old system was held together with digital duct tape and prayers, crashes daily, data losses weekly, clients constantly complaining. It was a nightmare. My first week, I stayed late trying to understand it was like archaeology, digging through layers of patches and shortcuts that previous developers had abandoned. My direct supervisor found me there at 9 p.m. You don't have to stay this late, she said kindly. I want to understand how everything connects, I replied, not looking up from my screen. This system could be so much better. She laughed. That's what we like to hear, but go home to your daughter. Was always my motivation. When I'd pick her up from the subsidized near our apartment, she'd chatter about her day while I mentally organized the code I'd tackle that night. Our routine was sacred. Dinner usually something from a box because fresh groceries were expensive, bath time, story time, and then she'd fall asleep on our pull-out couch while I worked on my laptop at our tiny kitchen table. Our studio apartment was 400 square feet of hand-me-down furniture and big dreams. Bedroom was a corner sectioned off with a curtain I'd sewn from clearance fabric. My office was wherever I could balance my laptop, but it was ours and I was determined to make it work. The breakthrough with the client system came after about 6 months. I'd identified the core problems: inefficient database queries, memory leaks, and a user interface designed by someone who clearly hated users. Working nights and weekends, I started rebuilding it piece by piece. I remember the first time I got the new search function working. It returned results in milliseconds instead of minutes. I literally whooped out loud, waking up. "Mama, what's wrong?" she mumbled, rubbing her eyes. "Nothing's wrong, baby. Mama just fixed something really big. Can we have pancakes tomorrow?" That was always focused on what mattered. "Yes, sweetheart, we can have pancakes." The next Monday, the new search function to the team. You should have seen their faces. Leaned back in his chair, arms crossed like he was skeptical, but when he saw the speed improvement, his eyebrows went up. "This is actually pretty impressive. How long did this take you?" "About 3 weeks of evenings," I said, trying to sound casual. "Evenings? You mean you did this on your own time?" "Well, yes, I wanted to make sure it worked perfectly before presenting it." Exchanged glances with, "That's exactly the kind of initiative we love to see. Keep it up." That phrase, "keep it up," became the soundtrack of my life at Helix Soft. Every time I solved a critical problem, streamlined a process, or pulled an all-nighter to meet an impossible deadline, the response was the same: keep it up. But never "here's a raise" or "here's a promotion," just keep it up. By the end of my first year, I'd basically rewritten their entire backend. The client portal I built reduced support tickets by 60%, customer satisfaction scores were at an all-time high, Clients specifically requested me for their projects. Mr. from Meridian Industries even sent an email to praising my work, has transformed our entire workflow. Her system is intuitive, powerful, and reliable. We're considering expanding our contract specifically because of her contributions. When I asked about a performance review and possible raise, he scheduled a meeting for the following week. I prepared extensively, documented every improvement I'd made, calculated the cost savings I'd generated, researched industry salary standards. I was nervous but confident. Said, settling into his executive chair while I sat across from him in the uncomfortable visitor seat, "You've definitely been busy. The system improvements are noted." "Thank you, I've prepared some documentation showing the impact of these changes." I slid a folder across his desk. He glanced at it without opening it. "Here's the thing though, you're still learning, still growing into the role. I think it's premature to discuss compensation changes right now." "I understand, but I've been here a year and the results speak for themselves. The client satisfaction scores are a team effort," he interrupted. "Everyone contributed to those improvements." I felt my stomach drop. "Of course, but the specific technical implementations I've done have directly." His tone was patronizing, like he was explaining something to a child. "You're eager and that's great, but experience matters in this industry. You're still junior level. Keep doing good work and we'll revisit this in another year." Another year, at $22,000 annually, that was barely above the poverty line for a family of two. After taxes and my student loan payments, I was taking home about $1,400 a month. Our rent was $800, was $300, that left $300 for everything else: food, utilities, transportation, clothes, for medical expenses. I was buying generic everything and still coming up short most months. But I smiled and nodded. "I understand, thank you for your time." Walking back to my desk, I felt like I was wearing a mask. Smile, be grateful, don't make waves. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator, trying to figure out how to make it work for another year. Was asleep, and the apartment was quiet except for the hum of our ancient refrigerator and the muffled sounds of our neighbor's TV through the thin walls. I opened my laptop and started browsing job listings, but my heart wasn't in it. I loved the work I was doing at Helix Soft. I loved solving complex problems, building elegant solutions, seeing clients succeed because of systems I'd created. I just hated being treated like I was disposable. The turning point came 6 months later when I hired his nephew. Brad Lane was 24, fresh out of college with a degree in business administration and exactly zero programming experience. But he was sister's kid, and apparently that qualified him to be a technical consultant at, I found out later, $9,000 a year. Brad's first week was memorable. He couldn't even set up his development environment without help. I spent hours walking him through basic concepts that any first-year computer science student would know, but was so proud, so excited to have family on the team. "Brad brings a fresh perspective," announced during our team meeting. "Sometimes you need someone who can think outside the box, not just follow the same old patterns." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Brad's big contribution to the team was suggesting we make the website more viral and asking if we could add some blockchain to the database for security. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom to laugh or scream, I wasn't sure which. Meanwhile, I was handling the most complex client implementations while making a third of what Brad made for asking if we could gamify the user experience with some AI. The final straw came when I requested a $2 an hour raise. $2? That would have brought me to $26,160 annually, still below the median income for our area, but at least enough to occasionally buy the name brand cereal she kept asking for. Scheduled another meeting, same uncomfortable chair, same patronizing tone. "I appreciate your persistence, but the company is tightening its belt right now. We just can't justify increased personnel costs." "I understand budget constraints," I said carefully, "but my contributions have directly increased revenue. The Meridian Industries contract alone is a team effort," he finished. "I know you've been working hard, but we all have. Times are tough. We need team players who understand that sometimes you have to sacrifice for the greater good." Sacrifice? He used that word while sitting in his corner office with its view of bay, wearing a watch that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. "I see," I said quietly. "I knew you'd understand. You're smart, practical, that's why we value you here." Value, right? That was a Tuesday in February. On Wednesday, I started thinking about alternatives. On Thursday, I began sketching out ideas for a better client management system, and on Friday, everything changed. It was 9:17 a.m. when the email arrived. I was reviewing code for the Henderson Group implementation, sipping my homemade coffee because even was a luxury I couldn't afford when I saw it in my inbox. Subject Q4 billing adjustments. From Elaine. Do Sarah Mitchell HR. CC the entire tech team distribution list. I almost deleted it, probably another boring administrative update, but something made me click it open. Sarah, please confirm we're keeping the current billing structure through Q4. Keep billing clients $320 hour first time, but maintain her current rate at $11 hour. No leverage situation here. Classic immigrant striver grateful for the opportunity and won't push back. Let's discuss Brad's rate adjustment at tomorrow's budget meeting. I read it once, twice, 3 times. $320 an hour, that's what they were charging clients for my work, and I was making $11 an hour. $11 an hour. The minimum wage in Washington state was $15.74 an hour. They were paying me less than minimum wage while billing my time at premium consultant rates. But it wasn't just the money that shattered me, it was that phrase, classic immigrant striver grateful for the opportunity and won't push back. I sat there staring at my screen and I felt something break inside me, not break like giving up, break like a dam bursting. All that polite smiling, all that grateful nodding, all those nights I'd worked for free to prove myself. They saw me as a mark, a sucker, someone so desperate and grateful that they could exploit me indefinitely. Around me I could hear the office stirring. Whispers, keyboard clicks stopping, someone's sharp intake of breath. The email had gone to everyone on the tech team, 15 people who now knew exactly how little their company valued me. Appeared at my cubicle, her face pale. It's fine, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. It's not fine, I had no idea about the billing discrepancy. This is wrong. I said it's fine. Because in that moment I realized something. This wasn't a mistake or an oversight. This was systematic, calculated exploitation. They'd done the math and decided that was worth exactly $11 an hour to them and $320 an hour to their clients. Appeared 20 minutes later looking flustered and angry. He'd clearly realized his mistake. Team meeting, conference room now, he barked. We filed in like defendants awaiting sentencing, stood at the head of the table, loosening his tie. Obviously there was a communication error this morning, he began. Internal emails regarding compensation structures were accidentally distributed. I want to be clear that salary information is confidential, and I expect everyone to maintain professionalism regarding this incident. He looked directly at me. I'd like to speak with you privately after this meeting. I nodded. Several of my were looking at me with expressions ranging from sympathy to embarrassment. Brad looked confused, like he couldn't figure out what the big deal was. After everyone else left, closed the conference room door. Look, I know how that email must have looked. How much? I interrupted. Excuse me. How much do you bill clients for Brad's time? His jaw tightened. That's not relevant to. It's extremely relevant. You're billing me at $320 an hour while paying me $11. What's Brad's rate? Personnel information is confidential. Is it $320 an hour? Looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Client billing structures are complex. There are overhead costs, administrative fees. That's not what I asked. We stared at each other across the conference table, finally sighed. Brad's billed at $150 an hour, but he's new, he's learning. And you pay him how much? I understand you're upset, but how much? His starting salary is competitive for his education level. Which is how much? Another long pause, $90,000 annually. $90,000 for asking if we could add blockchain to the database. I felt something cold and calm settle over me. I see. I know this looks bad, but there are factors you don't understand. Budget constraints, billing categories. No, I said quietly, I understand perfectly. That night after I put to bed, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and started building. Not fixing, not improving, not patching, building something entirely new. I named it Aurora. My neighbor Riley knocked on my door around 10 p.m. She was a graphic designer who'd been laid off from her agency the month before, another case of experienced talent being discarded for cheaper alternatives. Hey, I saw your light on, you okay? You looked pretty shaken up when you got home. I told her everything, the email, the billing rates, Brad's salary, all of it. Riley's eyes got wider and wider. Holy shit, that's criminal. It's not criminal, it's just capitalism. So what are you going to do? I turned my laptop screen toward her. I'm going to build something better. Riley looked at the wireframes and mock-ups I'd already sketched out. This is for client management. This is for everything. Client management, project tracking, billing, reporting, analytics. Everything HelixSoft does, but better, faster, and more intuitive. How long will it take? 6 months, maybe 8 if I'm being realistic, but I'll need help with the UI design. Riley grinned. You know what? Fuck it, I'm in. Those assholes laid me off to hire some kid fresh out of art school who works for half my rate. Let's build something that makes them all look like dinosaurs. And that's how Aurora Digital was born. In my 400-square-foot studio apartment, fueled by anger, coffee, and the absolute certainty that we could do better. For 6 months, we worked in secret. Riley would come over after I put to bed, and we'd work until 3 or 4 a.m. She'd design interfaces while I coded the backend. We'd test everything obsessively, refine the user experience, and slowly build something that made HelixSoft's system look like it belonged in a computer museum. During the day, I continued my performance at HelixSoft. I smiled when mansplained my own code to me in team meetings. I nodded when he assigned me the most complex projects while giving Brad the easy wins. I even helped Brad understand basic programming concepts, watching him get credit for implementations I'd essentially handed him. It's been so helpful getting me up to speed, Brad said during one team meeting. She really knows the technical stuff. Beamed with pride. That's great to hear. It's wonderful that you're taking on that mentoring role. Really shows your growth potential. Growth potential, right? But every condescending comment, every dismissive gesture, every reminder that they saw me as disposable, it all fed into Aurora. Riley and I would laugh about it while we worked, channeling our frustration into creating something revolutionary. The breakthrough moment came during a client demo that went catastrophically wrong. HelixSoft's system crashed right in the middle of a presentation to Vanguard Solutions, our biggest client. Their CEO, Red, was there in person with her entire technical team, and you could see the frustration building on her face as fumbled through explanations he clearly didn't understand. The server appears to be experiencing some temporary latency issues, said, sweat beading on his forehead as he clicked frantically on his laptop. Temporary's voice was ice cold. This is the third temporary issue we've had this quarter. I understand your frustration, but these things happen with complex systems. I stood up. We're paying you $50,000 a month for a system that crashes during critical presentations. That's not complexity, that's incompetence. The room was dead silent. I looked at who was staring at her hands. I looked at Brad, who seemed to be trying to disappear into his chair. I looked at who was clearly panicking. And then I made a decision that changed everything. I can fix this, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. His eyes were desperate but angry, like he resented needing my help. I don't think, he began. Please, said firmly, let her try. I walked to the front of the room and pulled up the backup system I'd been quietly maintaining, a preview version of Aurora running on my personal server. It wasn't the full system yet, but it was stable, fast, and loaded with all of Vanguard's current data. Within minutes, I had everything restored and running smoother than it ever had before. The interface was cleaner, the response times were instant, and the reporting features were more comprehensive than anything HelixSoft had ever offered. Leaned forward studying the screen, this is different, better. It's a more robust architecture, I explained, falling into my element. Distributed processing, optimized queries, real-time sync capabilities. Show me the analytics dashboard. I clicked through several screens, demonstrating features that HelixSoft had never even attempted to build. Asked technical questions, good questions that showed she understood the technology. I answered each one confidently, watching her eyebrows rise with each response. After 20 minutes, she sat back in her chair. Impressive, very impressive. The presentation continued without another hitch. Vanguard's team seemed genuinely excited about what they were seeing, managed to regain some composure, but I could see him shooting confused glances at me throughout the rest of the meeting. After Vanguard left, cornered me by the coffee machine. What the hell was that? What do you mean? That system you used, where did that come from? I built a backup solution for situations like this. On whose authority? I looked at him calmly. My own. I saw a problem and I solved it. Using company time. Using my own time, my own equipment, my own server. His eyes narrowed. We need to discuss this. My office, 4 p.m. But before 4 p.m. arrived, my phone rang, unknown number. This is Red from Vanguard Solutions. Do you have a few minutes to talk privately? My heart started racing, of course. That system you demonstrated today, you built that? Yes, ma'am. On your own. Oh, yes. Long pause. I'd like to meet with you, not at Helix Soft. Are you free for coffee tomorrow evening? The coffee shop chose was in Fremont, far from downtown and Helix Soft's usual haunts. She was already there when I arrived, laptop open, reviewing what looked like technical specifications. Thank you for coming. I'll get straight to the point. That system you showed us today is exactly what we've been asking Helix Soft to build for 2 years. I know I was in most of those meetings and kept saying it wasn't possible, that the architecture couldn't support those features. It couldn't, their architecture is fundamentally flawed. That's why I built Aurora from scratch. Aurora. I opened my laptop and showed her the full system, not just the preview she'd seen earlier, but everything Riley and I had built over 6 months of sleepless nights. His jaw literally dropped. For the next 2 hours, she peppered me with questions. Technical architecture, scalability, security protocols, user experience design. I answered every question confidently, demonstrating features that solved problems she hadn't even thought to ask about. Finally, she leaned back in her chair. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Okay. Would you be interested in starting your own company? My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. I'm sorry. Vanguard Solutions spends over $2 million annually on client management systems across our subsidiaries. What you've built is better than anything we've seen from established vendors. If you were to launch this commercially, we'd be interested in being your first major client. I stared at her. Are you serious? Dead serious. We'd provide an initial contract worth $500,000 annually, with performance bonuses and expansion opportunities, enough to get you started and prove the concept to other clients. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. Here's my direct number. She handed me a business card. When you make your decision, call me, but don't wait too long. Good opportunities have expiration dates. I drove home in a daze. $500,000. That was more money than I'd ever imagined having, but more than that, it was validation. Proof that what I'd built in my tiny apartment was genuinely valuable. That night after I was asleep, I called Riley. You're not going to believe what just happened, I said, and told her everything. Holy shit, we're actually going to do this. I think we are. When? I looked around my studio apartment, at sleeping peacefully on our pull-out couch, at the kitchen table where I'd coded Aurora, at the curtains separating our lives from everyone else's expectations. 2 weeks, I said. We launch in 2 weeks. The next morning, I walked into Helix Soft with a resignation letter in my bag and a lawyer's business card in my pocket. Reeves specialized in employment law and startup formation. Riley had found her through her network of freelance designers who dealt with contract disputes. Before you do anything, had advised, document everything. Every email, every project you worked on, every piece of code you wrote. If they're going to fight you on intellectual property, we need to be prepared. I spent my lunch break in my car, photographing contract signatures, saving email threads, and organizing timestamps that proved Aurora was built entirely on my own time with my own resources. At 4 p.m., I knocked on his office door. Come in, close the door behind you. I sat in that familiar, uncomfortable chair one last time. I've been thinking about yesterday's presentation, began, the backup system you used. What about it? I think there might be some intellectual property concerns. Systems built by Helix Soft employees, even on their own time, could be considered company property. I'd expected this. Actually, that's not accurate. I've reviewed my employment contract carefully. Work done on personal time with personal resources belongs to the employee, not the company. I think you might be misinterpreting. I'm not. I pulled out my resignation letter, which is why I'm giving you my 2 weeks' notice. His face went through several expressions: surprise, anger, calculation. I think you're making a rash decision. Let's talk about this. There's nothing to discuss. Is this about the billing rates? Because I can explain. No explanation necessary. I understand the situation perfectly. Look, maybe we can revisit your compensation package. I've been thinking that you've shown good growth potential. My decision is final. Leaned back in his chair, his expression hardening. I see. Well, if that's how you want to play this, fine, but I should warn you, competing with Helix Soft could have legal implications. Non-compete clauses, intellectual property violations, you might want to reconsider. I've already had my attorney review everything. I'm confident in my legal position. Your attorney, his voice rose slightly, you're making this unnecessarily adversarial. I'm protecting my interests just like you've been protecting yours. The next 2 weeks were tense but uneventful. I completed my assigned projects, documented handover procedures, and quietly prepared for launch. Mine were supportive but confused. Most of them had no idea I'd been building anything, let alone starting a company. Pulled me aside on my last day. "I'm sorry about how everything went down," she said. "You deserved better from us." "Thank you, that means a lot. What are you going to do next?" I smiled, something exciting. Aurora Digital officially launched on a Monday morning in September. Red signed our first major contract that afternoon. By Friday, we had 3 more clients and a waiting list. The press attention started small, a blog post in a local tech newsletter about a Latina entrepreneur disrupting client management, but then someone leaked the original email, the one calling me a classic immigrant striver with no leverage. The story exploded. Underpaid immigrant coder builds better system in secret apartment. From $11 hour to CEO, how one woman turned exploitation into empowerment. Helixsoft accused of systematic wage theft after internal email leaks. Tried to control the narrative by giving interviews, but every appearance made things worse. When a tech blogger asked him to justify paying me $11 hour while billing clients $320, he actually said, she was getting valuable experience. Not everything is about money. The internet was not kind to that response. Helixsoft's stock price tanked. Major clients started asking uncomfortable questions about billing practices and employee treatment. The state labor department opened an investigation. The board of directors was furious. Meanwhile, Aurora Digital was growing exponentially. Within 3 months, we had 28 employees, most of them former Helixsoft staff who'd been similarly undervalued or overlooked. Our new office in South Lake Union had modern equipment, ergonomic furniture, and, most importantly to me, an on-site where I could play while I worked. The sweetest moment came when Helixsoft's lawyers reached out about a settlement, not just for me, but for every employee who'd been affected by their billing optimization practices. The class action lawsuit that followed recovered over $3 million in unpaid wages. But the real victory was watching Aurora become the industry standard. 6 months after launch, we were processing more client transactions than Helixsoft had in their best year. Fortune 500 companies were switching to our platform. Tech giants were trying to acquire us. Lane left Helixsoft to pursue new opportunities, corporate speak for "we can't fire you publicly, but your career here is over." His nephew Brad lasted another 2 months before being quietly let go for performance issues. A year later, I was featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. The $11 hour CEO, How Built an Empire from Exploitation. The photo shoot was in my new office, with the Seattle skyline behind me and playing with toys in the corner. The reporter asked me what I'd learned from the experience. That our value isn't determined by what others are willing to pay us, I said. It's determined by what we're willing to accept. Today, Aurora Digital employs over 200 people across 3 cities. We have transparent salary bands, equity sharing for all employees, and generous parental leave policies. When people ask me why, I tell them about that email, about being called a classic immigrant striver with no leverage. Because here's what Lane got wrong: I always had leverage. Every skilled person has leverage, we just don't always know it. Last week, I got a LinkedIn message from a young developer in Phoenix who was being underpaid and overworked. She'd heard my story and wanted advice. I told her what I'm telling you now: document everything, know your worth, and never let anyone make you feel small. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's building something so successful, so undeniably better, that your critics have no choice but to respect it. I still drive past the old Helixsoft building sometimes. They moved to a smaller space in Renton after losing most of their major clients. But I don't drive by to gloat, I drive by to remember. To remember that scared single mom who thought she was lucky to have any job at all. To remember those nights at my kitchen table, coding by the light of my laptop while slept. To remember the moment I realized that immigrant striver wasn't an insult, it was my superpower. We are strivers, we work harder, dream bigger, and fight longer than anyone expects. But we're not victims, we're not disposable. And we definitely have leverage. Sometimes you just have to build it yourself. Is 7 now and she has her own room in our house in Queen Anne. She wants to be a programmer like Mama, which simultaneously thrills and terrifies me. But when she's old enough, I'll tell her about Aurora. About how sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is prove that you were worth more than they were willing to pay. Not bad for an $11 an hour classic immigrant striver, right? But here's the thing I want every listener to understand. This isn't just my story. This is happening right now in offices and startups and corporations across the country. Someone is being undervalued, underpaid, told they should be grateful for scraps from someone else's table. If that's you, I have one message. They're wrong about your leverage. You have more power than you know. Document everything, protect your work, and never be afraid to bet on yourself. Because sometimes the person who sees your true worth has to be you.